So I hope everyone is back in their seats and ready for the next part of this webinar. So I'm actually excited to introduce our next speaker. Okay, so our next speaker, Dr. REYNALDO INOCIAN, carries the NBC rank of Professor 6 of the Social Sciences and Humanities Department, College of Arts and Sciences at Cebu Normal University, Cebu City, Philippines. He is a writer, a researcher, regional trainer in teacher education initiatives, and advocate of cultural heritage preservation. His recent book publications under the humanities section include Aesthetic Teaching Pedagogies, A Voice of Experience, was published by Cambridge Scholars Publishing, based in UK in 2018. Fundamentals of Teaching, first edition. Aesthetic Teaching Pedagogies, third edition, published in the Philippines in 2010. And Lukay Art in the Philippines, Cebu's Pride and Unique Ritual Identity, published by the Scholars Press, Germany in 2015. He has published 39 research articles in refereed journals and gained 71 citations and 5H index from 2013 up to the present in Google Scholar. He served in different capacities, both within the university and outside, including being a former director of the Institute for Research in Innovation, Instructional Delivery, or IREAD, from 2017 to 2019. He was a member of the editorial board of the CNU Journal of Higher Education in 2014 to 2016, chairman of the Behavioral and Political Studies in 2013 to 2014, museum curator from 2009 to 2013, associate dean of the College of Teacher Education from 2009 to 2013, chair of the Professional and Pedagogy Studies of the College of Teacher Education in 2005 to 2009, research chair, College of Education in 2002-2003, ILS teaching mentor from 1998 to 2002, and junior instructor, University of San Carlos Boys School in 1991 to 1998. He will be a full-time professor at the College of Arts and Sciences. Everyone, let us welcome Dr. REYNALDO Buntuyan INOCIAN with our virtual clap.
Thank you, Beth. Good afternoon, my dear colleagues. Okay, so again, good afternoon once again. So I would like to thank Dr. Eva GACASAN for helping me out, especially for the psychological underpinnings of flexi learning and approach to module development. So what I will do right now is just simply discussing the self-learning module. I will not go over anymore with the theoretical underpinnings. So I would like to start with the best teachers to teach from the heart, not from the text, from the book. Because in modular instruction, the textbooks are no longer needed. Sometimes this will be used only for references, but not the main text for learning, because there are so many sources of information, and the module itself is a synthesis of what the teacher has experienced and from the readings from different sources. So this is my topic outline. I would like to define what is a learning module, and of course, the types of knowledge a scholar must need to know, by Ahrens et al. In 1997. This is an old book, but this is still very important because it talks about professional knowledge, content knowledge, pedagogical content knowledge. And of course, right now we have TPAC, technological pedagogical content knowledge. And of course, the parts of the self-learning activities and the noble craft of module writing. So I hope we can finish this within an hour before 4 o'clock. Okay, so what is a learning module? Okay, so I just have my simple definition of a learning module. Okay, it is a well-planned, tiered instructional learning tool used to facilitate learning with or without the guidance of a teacher. So you've noticed in that definition that there are highlighted words. One is well planned. So what do you mean by well planned? So in writing a module, it is not written haphazardly. It should be thought out of a long range preparation in such a way that you have to think about the design, the purpose, or what Dr. GACASAN mentioned about the design, the 10 prerequisites that she mentioned earlier. Those are needed in the planning in writing a learning module. The second one is tiered. So what do you mean by tiered? Tiered is chunks. So we don't want to write a module for the entire course for a semester for only one module alone. So what do you mean by tiered? We have to subdivide it according to learning outcomes, or other professors call it learning competencies, or the traditional way by topics, depending on how long this can be taught in a semester. So that's what we call tiered. So the average number of modules perhaps for a specific course in a semester might be 12 to 15. There are some easy ones that can be done, written in 20 modules, but that is too much. So depending on the professor, no, the freedom of the professor, how long these topics can be discussed in the classroom or outside of the classroom, because we are now in the flexi learning. Now, instructional learning tool. So when you speak about instructional learning tool, this is a device used for teaching and learning. Now, used to facilitate. So it's not just that we have to use this in a form of a traditional teaching, because flexi learning is one of the avenues for non-traditional classroom instruction, where we have to consider the different scenarios and needs of our students with or without the guidance of the teacher. So in a face-to-face traditional classroom setting, there is a teacher that will guide on how to answer the module. He or she will read about the instruction and expects to check all the needed worksheets and activities. But here in the without the guidance of a teacher, because it is really synchronous, just like what we do, what Dr. GACASAN did about the pools. There are questions that can be answered right away, and the students will have to look into right away the answers and the percentage and so on and so forth, or perhaps in a multiple choice type of test, and the answers can be readily seen by the students. So that is synchronous within a specific period of time. So meaning there is no teacher there, no? Perhaps that is the one that can substitute the teacher is the module itself, or the LMS, or the computer, the laptop, no? So the device. So what are the examples of a learning module? So I have it listed here for you. A learning module for writing a paragraph, that is one chunk, one tiered. Perhaps the next tier of that one, it might be writing because the students already know how to write a paragraph. Perhaps they can now explore to write a composition. Then another one is learning module for adding polynomials for math, and learning modules for photosynthesis in science, etc., and so on and so forth. This has to give you views on how does a module look like. Anyway, after my slide presentation, I will show you my sample crafted module on social studies major 1. No? Okay, so what does it take to write a flexible learning module? So of course, I mentioned about professional knowledge. So don't you worry, because I know some of us, some of our participants right now are new teachers, okay? And this is not a problem for us who are tenured, nga nanggungis nas profession. But I worry about the new ones, the young ones. So don't you worry, because there is such a thing as professional knowledge. So all of us were accepted in CNU by virtue of our expertise. We call this professional knowledge. No, this is knowledge of one's job, the nature of work. So meaning you cannot teach math if you are not specialized in math. You cannot teach English if you are not a major in English. So that is really specific to our nature of our work and our job. And of course, our career that are being practiced after the years of a formal training in higher institution of learning. Most of us are graduates of baccalaureate degree, but in most cases, we are not accepted in CNU. We are not a master's degree holder, and up to our doctorate degree holder. So we can all write a module. So for example, what are these under professional knowledge? Syllabus making is an example of professional knowledge. Okay, so the product of our syllabus, the syllabus that we see, is just really an indicative that we are professional. So I just laugh because for some, there are some syllabus who are really that great, and these are commendable. But there are some that needs also uh, what we call that retooling to improve that in the future, especially the syllabus maker. And of course, we are good in writing a research report. That is part of our professional knowledge. Writing a module is one, and serving the election is also one. Serving in our in training service like this webinar series, this is also part of our professional knowledge. Being dean of the college, academic professor, chairman of the department. So most of us right now, that more than 200 have this professional knowledge. We are capable to write a module. Then another one is content knowledge. So it's not enough that we have the professional knowledge. So what is really content knowledge? This is the knowledge of the curriculum that the scholar is currently teaching in regular academic program. This includes the knowledge about degree offerings. So are we familiar with our prospectus? Are we familiar with our curriculum framework? Are we familiar with our curriculum intent and our curriculum design? So all these include content knowledge. So I hope the deans can really, and the chairman of our different departments can elaborate more on this in our department meetings with the faculty. So, but in most cases, prospectus are just very basic. No, it is available in the registrar's office, and this is the list of all the courses, and of course the curriculum framework. This is really given by CHED. No, in higher education, this sets the standards, the outcomes, and the competencies, and of course the curriculum intent. What is expected of this particular course, and how is the course being designed? Okay, so the best example of this under content knowledge is textbooks to use. So scope and sequence, content and performance standards, the learning outcomes, and of course, the most important one is the formulation of learning objectives, which are from knowledge, affective, psychomotor, which Dr. GACASAN mentioned, from what we call now, from Bloom's taxonomy, which are now shifted to, changed now to Anderson, which are now competency-based and skill-based. These are also necessary in writing a module, because we cannot just simply write the content if we do not have laid down our learning objectives in terms of those mentioned by Dr. GACASAN. And then the technological and pedagogical content knowledge. What is this all about? This has something to do with theories and principles, which Dr. GACASAN emphasized earlier. The learning activities, the strategies, and of course, the online technology, which we call, in the next webinar series, we have to attend about LMS by Max, Sir Max and Nigel. We have to consider that because it is part of online technology, and the learning assessments, because curriculum and instruction is not complete without the assessments. We call it the achieved curriculum. So this includes these examples like online resources, learning tasks, tests, portfolios, and of course the corresponding rubrics, which all of these we are familiar about. No? And what are the parts of the learning module? So simply there are different parts of a learning module. If you are going to log on to the internet, there are several types of learning modules, but I don't want several types also of parts of its parts, but I don't want to copy some of those because I don't want to be accused with plagiarism and infringement later on. I know that during the TWG, the Technical Working Group, there was a suggestion of Dr. Abal And of course, it was handed to me. It was really sent to me by Dr. Palumpon about from Siameo. I like the the flow, the steps, because this is more interactive. And it turned out that in that particular meeting of the TWG, that my module that I prepared is more on content module. Then there was a suggestion to make it more interactive. So I refer the, what do you call this? The design of Shemeo, but I did not copy in toto. So I just simply crafted it together with Dr. GACASAN. The way how should be the best thing that say, and you can adapt without facing plagiarism and infringement in the future. So instead, we adopted how many steps? 1, 2, 3, 4. There are 7 of them, from the title, introduction, learning content, self-learning activities, looking back, self-learning, and extension of learning. So I would like to discuss this one by one. So when you speak about title, the title directs the user. No, these are our learners to identify which module to take and answer. This also includes other primary information like the module number. So in this case, I use module number 1. I just place it SLA, meaning self-learning as activities. Now, the original one that I crafted is designed learning activities, the LA. But there was a suggestion, I think, by Dr. Bacos during the TWG meeting that it should be self-learning module. So I just changed it to self-learning activities. And of course, the code, the course code, the number, that is why I have there Social Studies Major 1, the course title, Foundations of Social Studies, and of course, the name of the professor. So this is part of the title space. Now, there was a suggestion by Dr. Dayagbil last night that we have to add up before the professor, there should be time frame, which I also noted. So we hope that we have to include that before the course title, there should be time frame, how many hours that this particular module will be taken by the students, online or offline. Okay. Do you have questions, by the way? Can I proceed? Okay, so then the introduction of the learning module. This is the beginning part of the learning module that consists of the conversational prelude. I call this one conversational prelude because this is few sentences that the teacher will have to let the module reader, the learners, feel to be conditioned, to be climatized with the text, no, or with the content selection. And of course, the learning competency, which Dr. Dayagbil suggested that it should not be learning competency, but learning outcomes. So either way, whether we adopt learning outcomes or learning competency, but the best one is learning outcomes because the higher education, Commission on Higher Education really asks us to list down the learning outcomes. So we have to place it learning outcomes. Then after that, the learning objectives. Then we have the diagnostic test or pre-test. So assessment is not really placed at the end in our SLAs because we believe that assessment is enduring. So there is assessment before the module is taken, and there is the assessment within the module is taken, the learning content is taken, and of course there is an assessment after all the expected activities and content and the worksheets are taken by the learners. We call it summative assessment. So there are 3 sets of assessment that we place in the module. But in this case, under the introduction, the diagnostic test should be placed there. So, but this is really, the professor has the freedom whether to adopt this or not, because there are some subjects perhaps that they do not need diagnostic tests. Then they simply go right away to the learning content. So the learning content, how we define this one. So just very simple, okay? It is a piece of lesson selected to realize the learning outcome. So meaning, make sure that we have to find a lesson content that would really achieve the learning outcome or the competency, like information, facts, concept themes, etc., which Dr. GACASAN mentioned, and of course the skills. So in order to establish mastery, so what are the classification skills? We have cognitive skills, fine and gross motor, and even appreciation skills. And of course, values, beliefs, practices, etc., and affect like emotions, feelings, etc. So these are what we call exceeding what Dr. Isok asked in the what do you call that, academic council about KISABs, because this one is KISAB. We have the knowledge, skills, and values, but we include affect, emotions, feelings, etc. Because these are needed in the reflection, understanding and reflections, where before the students can produce their outputs and performances. Then the learning content also presents any of these in the learning module. So not all these three will be presented, depending on the context of the professor and of course the student's location. So one is synthesized notes. We can provide stories, essays, a chapter of the book if we have the online ebook, for example. But of course, we have to ask permission from the author. The articles, no? Like for example, in our published in journals, news clippings, lyrics of the songs, points, blogs, reports, and even our PPT slides and the PDF files that we have uploaded. So we can also place that as part of our presentation in the learning content. Now, there are some that they don't like to present these, depending on the nature of the course. They will present the learning content with the use of visuals, such as documentary films. Especially for history, I don't want my students to read printed materials anymore. I just really provide them to show the documentary films or videos, blogs, multimedia, hyperlinks, etc., and so on and so forth. And of course, for manipulative subjects, there are so many that we can provide in the learning content part of the learning module. We have to use with video games, no? Mobile Legends can be one. If there is really physics teacher who would like to use Mobile Legends and it can be connected with the lessons in physics that can be presented as learning content, and other forms of media presentation, okay? Now, what are the self-learning activities? So I don't want to have a lengthy discussion of this because Dr. GACASAN mentioned that was based on the following underpinnings of Need Herman, which I was fascinated during the talk of Professor Manikan, the whole brain learning system, which I have published around 5 to 6 research articles regarding whole brain learning systems. And of course, the Bernice McCarthy's formats techniques. And of course, this one, we derive our own learner-centered interactive module, which we call it KMUP, no? Knowledge, mastery, understanding, and product and performances. So the activities under this part of the learning module should be based on any of the 4 identified quadrants or identified sets of activities. It could be either knowledge, mastery, understanding or reflection, and products and performances. What I have prepared last time when I presented to the TWG, I made this one sequential that there are activities for knowledge, there is activity for performance, process. I call it process before we change it to mastery. And there was another set of activities for understanding, and there was an activity for product and performances. So meaning the students will have to perform the 4 activities. But I remember right, Dr. GACASAN suggested that it should not be done that way because it appeared very sequential and very what do you call that, lengthy, and it is really a sort of punishment in the part of the students that they have to comply all those required activities if they don't like to engage in knowledge because they have already the knowledge about their experiences, why they are forced to do that, where they like to engage right away to products and performances, or perhaps some students would like to engage in mastery because they like it and they do not engage in understanding, and so on and so forth. So that is why we allow our teachers and the module makers to create activities in such a way that students will have to pick any one of this, they have to choose which one is applicable for them according to their context, according to their experience, according to their location. And I remember right when Dr. Isuk mentioned one of the meetings we had long time ago, that we have, as constructivist teachers, our learners should be compared like worms. They can just easily pick whatever they like. So that is what I thought in mind, and together with Dr. GACASAN. So in this particular area, there is we listed possible activities, but we asked our students to choose which of the activities that they wanted to perform. And of course, if, for example, if they don't like to perform any of those listed, that is the thing that we have to negotiate later on. Okay? So what are those for? So Bernice McCarthy considered quadrant A the analytic learner. So we have to address the critical thinking skills of our students with logical arts. No? And of course, for quadrant B, we have to address for the common sense learners. This is more on communication skills. I just use the communication skills, but there are other skills, no? Rhetorical skills, I mentioned motor, psychomotor, etc., and all other skills. And of course, we have collaborative or dialectical arts. This is what we call for students who wanted to collaborate and engage with discussion with their learners and of course their teachers. And of course, skills for creativity, no? Or creative arts. So this is really for performance. Now, this is what the Department of Education adopted. They call it K-pop, but we don't want to follow the same way as what DepEd use, because DepEd, they use from knowledge up to sequential, no? So that is very understandable for them, for the students, because that's formative years for the learners from kindergarten to senior high school. But for our college students, that not anymore the need to have all those arranged sequentially, but we have to rely on their own choices, no? So this is it. I don't want to mention it. And of course, one theory that would support SLA activities, that it should be varied, is the theory of Carol Ann Tomlinson in 2001, who said that there should be differentiated instruction. So one way to the 4 activities that we set in this particular self-learning activities are in accordance with differentiated instruction. Like there should be varied approaches and adapted to in relation to individual and diverse students in the classrooms. But in this case, we do not have the classrooms anymore because we do not engage in face-to-face. So it's really flexi. So much more we have to differentiate, no? And then in 2014, I published a research about, because I was so intrigued about why is it that our learners are so trapped with being so knowledge conscious, why our students are so trapped at memorizing, why they are really trying to answer more on knowledge questions but less on the critical and critical questions and creative thinking skills. So I tried to look into the, what do you call that, the most commonly used textbook in the College of Teacher Education all over the country, which are available in our library and of course and outside. So there were around 18 books that I reviewed. My methodology was content analysis of those books, and this what came out in my analysis, because I wanted to find out how much degree of visual arts for learning that the author of the books use in order that the teachers in the College of Education can teach that properly to the incoming teachers in the field. So what came out, I used the 7 nexus of the arts of teaching, because whether you like it or not, teaching is more than just a profession. It is more than just a profession, it's an art. So I just tried to find out here in that particular study the degree of art integration in those books. And what came out is this. So look at that. So Communicative Arts for Learning, 86.67. So what happened to these textbooks that our students are using in the College of Teacher Education? Most of the strategies are more on communicative arts, just like question and answering, just like reporting, just like the usual cooperative learning, then small groups, then reporting, and so on and so forth. So we are biased about this kind of strategies. And then the second one is on theater. No? So if you are going to look at theater arts for learning, diha magaling ang mga estudyante as based on the books that I studied. There are common strategies: dramatization, role play, walang kamatayang drama, walang kamatayang pagsasadula, are all reflected in our teaching strategies books used by our professors in the College of Teacher Education. And it follows with musical, no? So definitely this is also reflective with the kind of Filipinos we have, that are people we have, that we are really musically conscious. This is really good. So this is used as strategies of teaching even. But look, natural arts very low, locomotor performing very low. So I wonder why is it that most of our textbook writers in these teaching strategies, maybe they are not PE majors, because zero. I have not seen any strategies in line with performing arts and locomotor art. And of course, very low about manual arts. So this is a challenge for the TLE teachers. Uh, why is it that we are not engaged anymore in projects that will utilize a lot of craftsmanship of our students? So the purpose of presenting this to all of you is that when you are going to make your self-learning modules, we have to consider which of the weak points of our teaching strategies that our students are not conversant about. So even visual arts, look at that, 53%. Literary, this is about what are some examples of literary strategies? Declamation, oration, seldom, no, rare that I can see in some of the books that I have analyzed. So this is now a point of departure for our faculty to look into what kind of activities that you have to provide in your self-learning module. So another one is the issue on what skills that we have to emphasize. There are two categories of skills. We call it convergent and divergent. Now, if we are going to go back to this model, quadrant A, B, this one, quadrant A, B, and we have here concepts and skills, McCarthy, this one, these are all convergent. A, B, convergent. Concepts and skills are convergent. But if you are going to have the C and the D, just like being emotional, interpersonal, holistic, intuitive, this is more on the connect, attend, refine, and perform. All these are divergent skills. So let's go back on how are these defined. So in critical thinking, according to Johnson in 2010, he defined that it is a type of thinking that converges on a single thought or entity. Here, one must now organize, analyze, or evaluate information, all of which could become a thinking skill if they were broken into parts and taught it explicitly. So the best example of this is we engage our students in the whole concept, whole theme, whole idea. Then we have to challenge our students to break this into parts and provide details. That's an example of critical thinking skills. So this is very convergent, but in contrast with the creative thinking, Johnson said it utilizes divergent thinking and this diverges from a single point. So meaning it is opinionated. There are many different interpretations following different types of cognitive processes like generating ideas. That's divergent. Integrating ideas and seeing things in new ways. So what Dr. GACASAN and I decided that we have to provide more on the creativity. We wanted to let our students have more on the integrating process, the creative thinking, because this is less developed among our people in the country and also our students. And of course, nation all over the world, this is often neglected compared than the critical thinking. So that is why we designed the KMU P came up, no? But of course, if we wanted to have emphasis on the creative thinking, this will take place not in the knowledge, not in the mastery, but it's more on the understanding and reflection where there is creativity. It's more on the products and performances where there is creativity. But of course, with what Dr. Cabalquinto said, that can never be done if the students do not know anything. So at least we have to apprise the students with little information, and we have to give them little emphasis on skills, especially when they are already college students, because they have done that all along when they were in elementary and high school. So we don't want to repeat what they have learned, because that's an insult of what they have learned already from the basic education. Okay, so what are the examples of critical thinking so that our faculty, especially the new ones, will be guided? So one example of critical thinking is comparing and contrasting. This is very convergent. I have here an example comparing and contrasting rural community and urban community. So if you want to have this one done, then you can have a module like this, a learning activity like this. And then there is analyzing. So a thinking skill used to find and break the things into their component parts and describe them in terms of their parts. So I have given an example in terms of farming, fishing community, which are rural, and of course we have urban, commercial, and industrial community, and what are the descriptions and issues. All these are guiding principles, guiding activities that students will have to master the skills of analyzing. I don't want you have to adopt this, but there are many ways on how to present the skills in your own learning activities in your SLAs. Then another one is you can have supporting a statement. This is an example. So I give a statement or claim. The Philippine government has increased its recent revenue collection compared than the expected BIR requirement. Then I ask the students, give me your evidence regarding the statement. So that's supporting a statement. Then another one is inferring. Inferring is one of the most difficult critical thinking skills. Many of our students failed in this. This is using observed clues and background knowledge to make some sort of informed guess or conjecture as to what may be true. So I have here a sample. So this is my clues that I provided. I use the context of chicharon in karkar. I just asked my students to read all this observation from 1 to 5. And then I also provided their background knowledge about chicharon. And then I asked them, what are your inferences? Give me 3 inferences from the given clues and background knowledge. So this is how to guide the students in terms of providing inferring activities in the SLAs. Another one is decision making. And this is one of the most difficult skills, critical thinking skills, which our students hurdle. So for example, what is a decision-making skill? So it is a skill to identify a problem or a decision that must be made, then generate ideas for a solution or decision. The cost and reward of each of these must be evaluated before a decision is made as to the best course of action, either by the individual or student or group of students. So in my case, I have made a decision-making chart. So I just hear some questions that as guide, and then they will answer this. When they are going to answer all these questions, they can organize this. It simply guides them to make a decision. So I just really using what Dr. GACASAN mentioned about scaffolding. This is what the best example guide for how to scaffold the skills. You guide them with questions until such time they will have the answer. They can get the skill. Then another one is ordering. So ordering can be used to rank any item, event, person, experience, or trait according to a given criteria. So here, I have here the directions, I have there the context. I use this one in my Philippine history, So the context is given the opportunity to assume leadership to Gregorio del Pilar at Tirad Pass. Which of the following objects in the list would you bring in order to win the battle against the Americans? So I just provided list. There are 10 of them. I just limited to 10. So the beauty here is that the students will have to arrange this from highest to lowest, from the most important to the less important. This is an example of ordering skills. And this is also critical thinking skill. And of course, another critical thinking skills is creating groups. So here in my geography classes, I just presented all the sample, what do you call this, provinces of the Philippines. And then the challenge is, I want the students to arrange these provinces according to groups. And you know what happened? Some students arrange this by regions. Some students arrange this one by land area. Other students arrange this by ethno-linguistic group. Other students arrange this one by islands. So it's funny thing, but at least that's an example of creating groups. That is still critical thinking. No? Now, there are also things that we do not engage so much on critical thinking. What are the examples of creative thinking? So one best example as pointed by Johnson is fluency. Fluency is a creative thinking skill that generates great ideas as much as possible. It can be used as pre-writing strategy. So my example is global warming. I ask my students, the problem of global warming, what are your perspectives? List down at least 5 or more. What are the given solutions in order to curb global warming? And then another one is flexibility. It's a creative thinking skill that helps students to generate variety of ideas in a number of different ways. This one is a number of different ways or approaches, just like this. Poorest members of the society, I just identify beggars, etc., and so on and so forth. Then I ask the students, what are the greatest potentials of these people? And what are the possible livelihoods? I did not ask here about the negative side, because the nature that they're beggars, they won't think that they are already the neglected people in the society, the street, the homeless. But of course, there is the great potential of these people. And what if you're the government, what should be done here? What are the possible livelihoods? So this is very beautiful, where creativity, creative minds of the students come in. And then another one is originality. No? So creative thinking skill used to design or create something. This is for creative thinking, such as product, poster, or performance, according to Johnson. So here I just provided materials. I challenge my students, look at rice up to charcoal. I want you to think of a product of all these materials. And then if you are really in economics, I ask them, create a product out of this, or products. Then list down the processes to have this product. So, and one of the funniest things that my students really came out is that they wanted to have a rice shampoo. Others would have a ginger papaya with milk, no, lotion. So very exciting, and the students really are happy performing the task. But of course, I know they are doing it well also during offline season during this pandemic, because they can really discern and think of possibilities when they are alone. And then another one is elaboration. So elaboration is a creative thinking skill that makes the original better, more interesting, more detailed, or more complex, or more refined. So I just use the context of English, and it is literature. Alfred Joyce Kilmer, The Trees, and this is very familiar poem. So I wanted the students to read the poem as the text, and then look at the questions that I asked them to answer based from the text. What is the message of the poem? To whom? To what? And when this is intended? There are several answers of this question based from the poem. And then what is the best title of the poem if given a chance to change it? So some students did change the title trees into when tree plant. No, I do not know. But they have to defend it with their choices. Why they have to bastardize the poem? Because bastardizing from the original is another example of creativity, as long as it is acceptable. Okay. Another one is integration. This is what I really like. No. So integration is deconstructing or modifying the original material to something new by putting the salient elements of two or more existing things. For example, here taken from the poem, The Trees, I group the students into 5 groups, A to E, and then group A, they have to transform the stanzas of the poem into a tercet, because if you have noticed, there are only 2 lines of the poem, 2 lines. So I wanted them to add another one to make it tercet. And then B, change the melody of the song with a happy mode, because The melody of the song is very melancholic. I think that I shall never see a poem lovely as a tree whose hungry mouth is pressed. So that's very melancholy. So I asked them to change the melody into a happy mode. So it's very exciting. And then simulate the message of the poem on stage. You can really present this into a play or a game, produce an interpretative dance of the poem, and visualize the poem on canvas. So these are manifesting the different nexus, 7 nexus of the arts. I just limited this to 5 because the other two nexus may not be applicable, no? And then there should be an actual exhibits of the outputs or the staging of the performance. So the problem here in the synchronous presentation of the stage play presentation, the performance, it might be that this would be videotape, just like what the students downloaded, uploaded in YouTube. It's just similar to that. Now that the teacher in the luxury resting in the luxury of their houses, they can really view the performance of the students in a video presentation. So that's how it should be done in this particular area in integration. And of course, brainstorming is a creative thinking skill that works well to create a structure and generate ideas around it. No? So I just presented one concept lab. I asked the students, what is your concept about this word? You can increase this to have a perfect schematic diagram or another graphic organizer that they wish to present. And then another one is generating relationships. This is a creative thinking, looking for similarities between one or more person, item, or event. So I just placed here, what are the relationship of primes and laws, or the attitudes and laws, attitudes and primes, and have an output of this. And then reflective thinking. Reflective thinking is a meditative skill, emphasizing the use of deep transcendence and sensitivity to our thoughts, feelings, and actions, which are created, evaluated, and used. So I just presented here the context. Death is inevitable as part of reality. What are your reflections of Socrates' death? So this is my discussion about world history when we discuss about Greece, and Socrates really ended to his life. He committed suicide. And just I asked a reflective thinking regarding this. Socrates on reflections on, this is something to do with content, reflections in feelings, reflections about action. So I just give the example, my own example, and I ask my students to follow and make their own examples. Just like Socrates, was one of the greatest philosophies that Greece had ever produced. I felt sad about his decision to commit a suicide because life is sacred. Socrates could have left Greece to save his life. No, this is the coward coward action that I wanted my students to think about. But there are many other reflections students will have to write on regarding this. Then another one, we have to consider SLAs. Self-learning activities may also be based on the quadrivium of the arts. So I just presented in one of my articles, which was published in a journal. I just arrange the strategies and techniques of teaching according to quadrivium. So we have the quadrant A, then we have the quadrant B, C, and D. So let's take care with the quadrant A, because this has something to do with those people who are teaching in the sciences, those people who are teaching in philosophy, teaching logic, teaching mathematics, chemistry, physics, biology, accountancy, and other sciences. I think you can have a lot of activities regarding this. It has something to do with logical arts. It has something to do with how the students can use logic in correct grammar, sound reasoning, sound judgment, etc. So what are the strategies or the activities that you can provide? Graphs, charts, timelines, graphic organizers. These are what we call visual art. Lyrical compositions, lyrical analysis, this is musical art. So what are the skills addressed? Convergent thinking and higher cognitive skills. And of course, I came across with a literature from Isner. Isner said, with the use of logical arts, the students will have to enhance solving problems in complex forms, making vivid representation on our thinking. So this is one area. If you are really comfortable with this, you can really provide activities in line with quadrant A. And then another one for quadrant B, this is the rhetorical arts. So I just presented here, especially for English, for Filipino, no, literature, communication, and the languages. This is very ideal for these departments, for these degree programs. Rhetorical arts comprises speaking, writing, painting, drawing, and singing using correct set of procedures. So just presented here samples of visual, literary, and musical like cartoons, comic strips, reading, oral reading, singing, chanting, manipulating of musical instruments. All these are part of the rhetorical. And then communication, of course, these are convergent. And Isner said this is trafficking of subtleties, no? Okay, or intricacies, no? So this is a skill, no? Facilitating better communication. Of course, this is very obvious. And then for quadrant C, this is now what we consider as sabot, no? Pamalandong and reflection. So this is dialectical, comprises the use of literary theater, performing communicative strategies, using the power of emotions in different ways. So these are all disciplines, disciplines with major discussions in political science, governance, geography, history, anthropology, sociology, economics, tourism, and even in psychology, this can be used. So what are these? Storytelling, we have theater, we have communication, so like game, pantomime. I don't want to read so because all of these are listed, no? And of course, according to Esner, this can enhance celebrating multiple perspectives. And of course, discovering wide range of feelings. So it's nice that the feeling of the students, especially during this pandemic, if they are alone, they can really talk to their sister, their brother, their siblings, and the rest of the members of the family when they are going to perform the activities in the learning module. Okay, and of course the last, this is the quadrant D, the creative arts. So they have something to do with visual, literary, musical, naturalistic strategies using the power of emotion in different ways. So this is good for home economics, practical arts, music, physical education, humanities, even engineering, technology, and advanced sciences. So what are these strategies? We can use visual art like collage, poster, painting, miniatures, scrapbook, and of course literary, which I have mentioned, musical, and of course the naturalistic like landscaping, gardening, mosaic, wood carving, modeling, clay, basketry, weaving, folding, etc. You can add more in the list if you want. And of course this addresses creativity, and of course Esner said this can enhance disclosing inner feelings, opening opportunities for change, and making good judgment about qualitative relationship, either of the self, the relationship with others, the what they call that, the relationship of the community, and of course the country and the world. No? Okay, so how are these addressed? It's very common in our worksheets and in our activities. We have to use a lot of what questions as provided by McCarthy, no? Cat-on. And of course, we have the the how for Antigo and the why for sabot o pamalandong. And of course, the gama or himo, we have the what if. No? So this one all are convergent. This one is all are divergent. No? So that is why I was so happy with Dr. GACASAN when she said to me, holistic and integrating, we can have a good model for this because it is really guided with theoretical and their feelings. And of course, the sample for the SLAs. No? So this is just what I did in my module 1. I call it SLAs of learning activity, KMUFP, KMAP. No? So we have for set A, we call it for knowledge, what song or poem that you can associate with the definition of social studies. Post the lyrics of the song or the poem in social media about its relationship to the definition of social studies. Because in my learning kit, in my learning content, there is one aspect there about definition of social studies. Those who do not have access to social media, then write it on the piece of paper. No? Then for this one, another set of activities, read the major, minor, and other fields of social studies, make a concept web of these pieces of information, post your output in your social media, or just simply sketch it on paper. So why I use concept web, I use this as a cognitive skill, no? And then for mastery. And then the last one, that's the third one for understanding. For guided online or offline, I just use offline in case the students do not have access to the internet. What is wrong about the teaching of social studies that resulted in the increase of undesirable citizens of the country? This is very divergent questioning. No? What should be done by the Department of Education to better enforce the implementation of social studies program in the K-12 curricular offering? So in answering this question, they will use the content knowledge that they learn from quadrant A and quadrant B. No? And then this one, this is really for curriculum evaluation. This is now for performance. Download a curriculum guide in social studies in-depth website or secure a specific text. Now, I have an option if they cannot download. They can use a specific textbook in social studies in any grade level. Evaluate it based on the 7 major themes. So there are 7 major themes in the content. I asked them to analyze those themes and try to come up with a checklist to find the degree of integration from the highest to the lowest level in terms of the competencies, and make a proposed recommendation for the revision of the curriculum or the selected textbook. So this is really very difficult, but I know some students will be challenged to do this task rather than simply mastering the information association, which are all found in the learning kit. And of course, this is now the question. What if the learners don't like any of the 4 suggested activities? Now, there are some cases, say, I hate doing all those 4. Can I have my own? So Dr. GACASAN and I decided that there should be a negotiated activity. This is an option for the learners based on their context, location, and time. The teacher will consider terms and conditions for agreement. The teacher and the learner will have to meet halfway regarding the agreement of this task. Just like, for example, we have to consider the risk, we have to consider the limitation, including time, resources, and so on and so forth. But if it is really acceptable between the teacher and the students, even if it is not listed in the SLAs, then it should be honored by the teacher. So then after the SLAs, the next part is looking back. So this is the term that we use for review. No? This is the review of learning using 4 different sets of worksheets reflecting that came up for the learners to choose from to choose from. However, none of these sets the students like to perform. Then again, we have to go also through the negotiated worksheet, which will be sought between the teacher and the learner. No? Then, looking back also include the use of formative assessment to check mastery of learning. So I just indicated here formative check, okay, to check whether the students learn from the content or not, or from the video that they are viewing, or from the games that they are engaging, if they are playing Mobile Legends or Minecraft or whatever games that they engage in the internet, then it should be tested using formative assessment. And then self-planning. So self-planning, I like this part because this is an application of the metacognitive skills of the students, that out of those things that they read in the SLAs, they are able to find out what should be the best thing for them to do. No? So this is a metacognitive skill of the learners, self-learning module, and to achieve a higher performance in the summative test. No? So they have to plan out how to improve their summative test based from the result of the performance and the diagnostic test. So after that, pabaon for students. We call this one in the traditional setting assignment, but this is not really good because some other countries do not use assignment anymore. So the appropriate term that they use is extension of learning. So at the last part of the self-learning module, this focuses on the enrichment that enhances an appreciation of learning from the given learning content. So I just classify this into 2 for synchronous and the asynchronous. No? Pwede niya nato siya isynchronous, pwede sa asynchronous. Download the given links below and watch it. So write a manifesto on how to become a better citizen in your barangay. Post it in your blog or wiki. So I just asked them to engage if there is blogging or wikis, writing wikis. So this is the link that I wanted them to upload and watch, because it has something to do with what is a social science and what is a global citizen and a good citizen in the classroom. So by just watching all these videos, they can really think that sooner or later they will have to be a better citizen, not to be corrupt in the society by watching these videos. But however, if the students have no access to online connections, I just had this for those without the internet connections, ask members of your family what is their concept of good citizenship. Write an essay on how important is good citizenship for the community and the nation. Submit this completed essay after 1 week. So I just provided the time. The time is very necessary because uh, uh, some students will not be pressured if there is no given time frame. So I do not know if we still have time, but this is one part of my presentation. The writing of a learning module is a novel craft. So we have here a characteristics of a writer, and this is not really a problem for us who are really nagungis sa profession, but for those who are really new teachers and the young ones. So that a writer of a module is an keen observer of all things that appear before him or her. Nothing escapes from his or her attention. Even from the experiences of the pandemic right now, that can be a learning content if you know how to write and be observant. Then be able to take down notes on habitual skills that you have. It's either your habit is taking photographs. Why not use your photographs as your learning content, and then ask the students, provide them activities in relation to those habitual skills that you are fond of doing most of the time. And then another one, analytical, critical, synthetic, coherent, and logical mind. So we cannot write something if we do not have all this one. So I have mentioned how to be analytic. We have to break down the whole into several parts and give details, how to be critical, how to be objective, how to be synthetic, synthetic, how to integrate, and how to be coherent, how to observe proper judgment, how to observe rules, and how to be logical, how to be sometimes righteous. And of course, inherent capability to inquire engages in reflection, meditation, imagination, and speculation. And of course, you are very honest to your emotion. You respect the feelings of others, responsible and mature, attentive to his or her experience. Because if you are not responsible and mature, you are tempted to copy all the modules found in the internet and change your name. So that should never be, no? And then characteristics. A good module writer must have the following attributes: intrinsic interest or desire to write. Such desire functions as a raging driving force that compels the person to reach his or her goal. So, for example, when I was asked by the president to to write a sample module, I just asked to myself, I have to condition my mind because it's not easy to write. So, but then when I sat down, I just did it in a couple of hours because it was really, I had to nurture my creativity and being my artist, how to condition my mind in order to finish it. So that is an intrinsic interest. And then he or she is a reader. A writing module never occurs in an empty slate. There is no such thing as tabula rasa. So it's not given. Although there are some, for those who are really teaching teaching the same courses or subjects in one course. Like for example, English 1, there are 8 who are teaching this. You please do not just use the modules of the others. That it should be possible that all of you will contribute writing that module so that it should be collaborative. You know? Okay, and then well-disciplined person, you should observe deadline, time conscious, because I know that the people who are really assigned for the, like Sir Omar, and those who are really the online administrators, they really have to be conscious with the time for the downloading of these materials in the platform, or whatever platform that CNU will adopt. We have to attend in the next webinar series, because I know Sir Max and Sir Nigel will discuss about the LMS. This is very important, where all of our modules should be placed there. And of course, we have to be proficient in the English language. He or she uses his or her writing, because most of our courses use English, except for Filipino. And then in Filipino, it should be uh, written clearly, acceptably, no, with proper grammar and proper font, uh, proper text, no. And then we have what we call characteristics of a writer. This is what I mentioned about correctness, completeness of facts, data, or information. So there's a need to review and review and review your online modules, just like what I have written. It was presented to the TWG, and then there were suggestions. I revised based on the suggestions. Then I presented to Dr. Pugoy, to Dr. Dayagbil. There were suggestions, and then I just incorporated. So even grammar, no, I'm not an English teacher, but I suggest that if CNU will have to adopt this one in the soonest time possible, there should be editors, and it should be from the English department to screen the grammar, to correct our English, no? And then respectful of other authors. So let us not be thieves of someone's ideas. Let us acknowledge them to prevent copyright violations. Insatiable drive to learn, like open to new ideas, updated, and has a drive to improve his or her craft. And what are the possible problems of a writer when we write our modules? There are problems of subject matter, especially when the course is very new to you. You are not teaching that course for quite a long time, but this is new. So you have to read and read and read in order to have mastery of the field, so that you can write the module. Then the form or style. Now, there are some institutions that they have a standardized form as mandated by quality assurance. I hope our school will also have that. But of course, it should be agreed upon. But in most cases, in some other countries, this should be free by all module writers and professors because of our academic freedom. And then the language. Uh, our students are college students, so our language should be uh, better than the language of an ordinary elementary and high school student. So it should not that as simple as it is, no? But of course, it should be written in the simple language, but the tone of that language should not be for grade 5. It should be for college students. And then the structure or the milieu in the workplace, we have to consider the setting, no? The place where our students and where we are. Of course, we are in our respective homes where we are expected to write better, but the problem is the internet, the connectivity of our internet connections. Thank God that this time, okay ra ang akong internet. My greatest fear is, what if I'm really offline? Who will really do? I know Ms. Babette will really take me over. If, for example, if there is really an interruption of the connection. So then, rights of an author. So of course I have listed here, and we know this, freedom of expression, except in cases of infringement, assault to others' privacy and dignity and plagiarism, right to information. So when we write module, it should be informative. He or she has the right to know or to be informed, just as he or she has the right to tell others of what he or she knows about. Right of ownership of his or her work as duly mandated by the intellectual property rights and the copyright law. So I'm just expecting that any administration will have to request the teachers, individual teachers, that these modules that they crafted should be copyrighted and it should be published. And of course, in some countries, I like the letter E there, right of payment of his or her work in the form of royalty or salary. If in case that the CNU will plan to have all this one published and then reproduced in CNU, or else if it is really uh, uh, other schools. Then we have also the what do you call it? It should be paid. And of course, the right of citation or acknowledgement of any published material that uses his or her published work as one of the reference materials. So of course, we have the responsibilities, integrity. So I know that this all of us are have manifest this value. This is wholeness, the author's prime responsibility. Such shall be manifested in his life and his work. Integrity demands from the author the following values of honesty, impartiality, humility, ability to let other people be with their contradicted opinions. So sometimes we quarrel, sometimes we disagree, but of course we have to agree disagreeably or disagree agreeably in terms of integrity. And of course, accuracy, truthfulness, completeness, and objectivity or impartiality, giving a pool of knowledge to his or her readers. So we will have to observe that in our SLAs, our self-learning activities or modules, we have to provide sulit na information to our readers. And of course, message conveyed is clear, precise, understood by his or her readers. He or she must prioritize comprehension rather than impression, meeting the deadline or commitment to the timetable. No writer should afford for himself or herself to write his or her own sweet time. Accept criticism, especially those that come from the evaluators. No? And we are familiar about this because our research are refereed sometimes is bloody comments. We have received bloody comments, and sometimes we think that I don't want to revise, but we have no options except to revise. So those are criticisms. Contextualization of the contents of his or her learning module based on time, location, etc. And of course, the 7 rules on effective module writing. Think first. Dr. GACASAN mentioned about design, so we have to think first the design. Write, get to the point. What do you want to, to let the students know? Use familiar words, revise, improve, express in the affirmative statements. So do not use negative statements in most of our written text in the module. It is applicable that we have to adopt passive instead of active is instead of passive voices. No? And then write in order to express, not to impress, and consider your readers. Then we have module writing process. Like textbook writing, I got this one from Speaker Babor. He said that we have to have pre-writing, and this is preparing to write. So just really scribbling. And then what do you want to write on? And planning and organizing, writing the first draft, revising, improving the content and organization, proofreading, editing, writing the final draft, and following up the evaluation of the evaluators. And these are the simple tech tips for pre-writing. So, okay, interest of your of us, no, our author and our readers, the personal involvement of the author relative to the subject, author's expertise or specialization, author's scope or exposure or range of experience to the subject or topic. So in most cases, natagaan yun aning takong chance in terms of expertise or experience, the tenured teachers. Sometimes we can write modules even without references. Why? Because we know already our turf. No? And then pre-writing, so this includes ability or resource materials regarding the subject topic, which include the following: checking the library resources, available journals, books, others, inquire, contact people who have the resources. This implies networking. It's very easy right now. We can really contact through emails and Facebooks with our friends from outside of the country who are experts in our field. And of course, there is a dearth of material of the subject to consult online sources. So writing per se includes the following: identifying your audience. So if our students are college students, I mentioned that, let us fit our writing according to college thinking. And exploring ideas, we have to list down the ideas, list ideas related to your topic, allow your mind to explore, and write whatever comes out. And of course, you will find out that one idea leads to another. In this way, you will discover useful ideas that you may have otherwise overlooked. So this is how it looks. Do not worry about correct grammar, spelling, or punctuation in in writing because later on you have to rewrite that and revise. Do not write complete sentence. Instead, write keywords, phrases, and ideas. Discussing your topic with others, solicit comments, opinions, and suggestions. Through their discussions, others will give you ideas or possibilities. So this is how it looks in pre-writing. I don't want to mention that, but you have to read it in your comfortable time, including the clustering of concepts and ideas. No? So for example, we can cluster them uh, according to systems, according to structures, according to opinions, etc., depending on the situation in your own course. No? So there's a need for us to draw a circle. These are the techniques, no? Drawing a circle on paper and then subdivide that to chunk the ideas into concept, the main concept into different ideas, and accept any idea related to your topic. No, we call it concept webbing. No, so we do this in research most often. No, and of course, essential elements in a well-organized content. There should be first sentence, the main idea in the paragraph. And the main idea most likely uh, seen in the first, it might be at the middle or in the last paragraph of your module. The body, this pertains to the points or specific details or support the main idea. There should be a conclusion, the winding up of the entire content. And of course, it should be clear and convincing content. That is why it should be interactive. Main idea, convincing support, and appropriate tone is also needed. And of course, the planning and organizing, there should be, it is included that the main idea is there, the convincing support, and the appropriate tone of the language. This is how to express appropriate level of formality based on your chosen audience. And of course, planning and organizing includes the first sentence, the body, and the conclusion. And of course, the correct spelling later on contains a subject in every clause to avoid dangling sentences, no? Dangling by the modifiers. And then contains a verb in every clause, does not employ and run-on sentences, contains no sentence fragments, and correct and consistent use of tenses, including parallelism. So, but of course, if you cannot do this, I know the grammarian in the English department can do justice with this. I hope that they can also be given extra payment because that is not also a part of their mainline job. And of course, writing the first draft, this is how it should be done. Focus on the content, write freely, then typographical errors, inconsistency in terminologies, tendency to editorialize. So I would like to on this. Some of our modules, because it is really interactive, we are fond of using we, I, no. This that should never be done because that's really editorializing. So avoid all those we and I, no? Then you use the third person. Avoid using conversational approach or dialogical mode of writing and worry about grammar later. The editor will do justice for it. And of course, this is now the revising the manuscript. No? So the module is a manuscript also. Improve content organization of your draft. Then, of course, you have to eliminate unnecessary awkward ones. Move materials from one spot to another, from one paragraph to the next paragraph, or one from the middle paragraph. It should be done at the first or the last paragraph. That's how we do this in research when we revise. And of course, proofreading and editing. Proofreading means finding the errors. Proofreaders have no right to edit. Editing job is reserved to the editors. Editing means correcting the errors. And of course, we have writing the final draft. Make an honest resolution on what you really want on your book, or in our case, module. Be brave and patient of expressing what you really want on your book or module, and of course, following up and evaluating the process. So this is now the last phase. And of course, before I show my sample module, I would like to end my presentation with Mark Twain's quotation, which I really love. A round man cannot be expected to fit in a square hole right away. He must have time to modify his shapes. I love this one because for how many years of teaching experience, I really did modifying a lot of my shape from the square to circle to triangle in order to fit the writing of our instructional modules. Thank you very much. But before I would like to engage on in interaction of answering of your questions, I would like to show the sample module that I crafted. I do not know, Sir Omar, can we flash that? Where is it?
Sir, usa ako nagatabang, sir.
Katong module, sir, katong sample SLA. I-run down lang nato, sir, kaya aron makita nila how is it done.
Sige, sir.
SLA. PDF, SLA.
This one, sir?
SLA.
Mo ni, sir? Mo ni, sir? Tama?
Okay, this one also. Thank you, Sir Omar.
Okay.
So this is SLA. Okay, so you've noticed that this is the part. This is now what we call the introductory part. So based on the suggestion of Dr. Abao, it should be made interactive. So this is how I introduce my module. This is my introductory portion. Hello, everyone. What is the socio-political condition right now in your community? Does your community provide you the support you need? How many good citizens that you can count on in your community right now? These questions will lead you find answers as you read SLE1 and perform the required activities and worksheets. So this one is learning competency. So arrow down, Sir Omar. Okay. Ang kaning learning competency, according to the President, Dr. Dayagbil, pailisan lang ko ni siya og learning outcomes. But this is one of the learning outcomes of my SS Social Studies Major 1, analyzing the nature of social studies in basic education in the Philippines. So una dyan na mo nga discussion for week 1, no? So that is why I place it there. And of course, I have my learning objectives. So I have 3 learning objectives. Unmask the nature of social studies education in the Philippines through various activities. Participate discussion online or offline of the goals and aims of social studies on how this impact to a Filipino. Evaluate sample curriculum guide or textbook in social studies based on identified themes. Pero pag abot din ha, ningon dayon, oops, perform this diagnostic assessment first. So, granting na nani dito sa LMS, so they have to answer this, no? So, pero sa printed materials, we will provide them a separate formative assessment copy. Okay? Sige, Sir Omar, i-run down na to sa next part. Sige pa.
Yeah, sir.
Katos yung content, learning content. Okay, this one. So this is my learning content. So I use here the synthesized notes because I have a lot of notes about, about competency 1. So I just place it there. But if you don't have the notes and it's taxing for you to write, and if you can get videos or documentaries about the nature of social studies in my case, or in your case, then provide the link. You just place there, download the link and watch the video. Then provide questions. No? So this is what do you need to know? Answer this. To answer this, you have to read the given text completely with joy. As you explore how to be a good citizen in the country, in this reading text, you need to know how to know also the social studies is course for humanity that integrates fields of social sciences, humanities, and other related fields. Sige, Sir Omar. Taas-taas ka ini. So, mo ni siya ang reading text. No? So, makaton na sila ani even without my presence. Sige na, sige, run down lang siya, sir, kay taas-taas ni. Adto na ta sa kuan SLAs.
Kini mo.
Sige, sir, SLAs. Sige pa.
Ayan, sir.
Sige pa, sir. SLAs.
Okay,
SLAs. No? Okay. So, in the SLAs, mo na akong giingon kanina, that we do not force the students to perform all the activities. I just place it here. Don't get excited yet. You need to know how to use the self-learning activities. Following the constructivist approach, active learning takes place based on selected choices. Considering that you don't have the same level of knowledge and experience about learning context, you have the option to choose which level of KMAC activities you need to perform, provided that you need to completely do it with joy. So for example here, pick for knowledge if you do not have any amount of information. And if you have knowledge, then you need to explore the skills. Once you have already mastered, then you need to pick understanding. Some of you don't need knowledge, process, understanding, and pick up. So I just gave that. You can, but for the subsequent modules, you don't have to place it there because they are already guided on. They're already accustomed on what is expected of them to do that. Not all the activities listed should be performed. Sige, sir. Sir Omar. Okay, sige. Ato na ta sa the next step. So the one that I have written in italics, these are guide for the module maker. So these are my activities, no? Provided activities. Then next, after the activities, sige Sir Omar. Okay. Then we have what we call the looking back. So this is now the worksheets. No, the same as of the activities, the worksheets should be selected. Okay. And then after the worksheets, okay, then you have the formative assessment. So now I give some sample questions for formative assessment. So I would like to defend the multiple choice here because for the College of Teacher Ed, we wanted to hone the students to properly answer multiple choice in preparation for the licensure exam. So that is why I provided more of multiple choice. But for those who are non-PRC degrees, you can give a lot of questions there, not just really for multiple choice alone. No? Okay, then the next one, the last one, sir. So, the last one is the extension of learning, self-planning. No? Okay, and extension of learning. So, and then the next one is references. So you have to indicate your references also because this is also needed. Some of the users of this one, like our students and some professors outside, they also try to find out the list of references. I think that's all. Thank you so much. If you have questions.
Okay, so thank you very much, Sir Ray. It's definitely a full afternoon, but I think that everybody would agree with me that it has been a worthwhile afternoon, right? So thank you very much, Sir Ray. You've really provided us with rich information, content, examples. So daghan kayong salamat. And I am really feeling the online presence of our participants. No, makapil ko sa ilahang presence sa chats. And so we can only, unfortunately, answer 3 questions. So yes.
Can I share that module very quickly?
Okay, sige ma'am.
This is the subject, no? I'm giving an idea what the module is about. Then giving them also the details of what module 1 is, module 2, 3, then you have 4. For every module, I have 4 or 5 lessons siguro.
Yeah.
Ana, module 2, 3, 4. Then the outcomes, pre-assessment. Okay. Okay, I have sample questions here, but that is pre-assessment yet. Then I called it task, but I think it's the content tray, no? Like saying mere mention of laws, rules, or guidelines may not be as meaningful as when you get to see this at work in particular situations, blah, 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 blah. So from there, I'm asking, or I will ask students to do the following, to do some readings. Then Then I call it inner configurations. Okay, without it, there can be no basis for legislature or courts. Then, because there was that UP case I presented earlier. Okay. Summing things up. Prevent it from happening. If it should still happen anyway, how will you handle? How do you regard? Does it matter at all? Why? This transfer of knowledge and new skill sets. There's this case that they have to read. This actually exemplifies academic freedom, which is contained in the Constitution. Okay, guideposts. Then space for them to answer or to write their answers on. Yeah, further challenge. Wala siya nahuman. Oo. So,
sino siya? Lain-lain country. Sildo?
What do you say, Ray? Mas Ray?
So siguro, Ma'am Bibs, what we can do is we will let Sir Ray INOCIAN contact you personally para he can thoroughly review.
Okay, sige. Sige.
Okay, okay. So it's really been a fruitful afternoon. So just to synthesize, no, that what we are providing this afternoon is a conceptual tool, general framework of how we can get started with flexi learning and especially in creating a module. Okay, so we are providing you with the conceptual tools, the theoretical underpinnings, so that we will be more confident, no, when we start the task. And then Sir Ray also provided us with concrete examples of how these would, the SLAs, the different activities would look like, okay? So I have really felt the online presence of everyone in the chat. And so thank you very much for being such an engaged audience. And at this time, I will just leave you with this call for action. In this great time, in this time of great disruption, uncertainty, and complexity, we either flex or perish. And with that, thank you very much for your participation. And we call this already the end of the webinar session. So thank you.